Welcome to Bound by Books, a podcast of five authors across the genre who talk about the one thing they're all bound by, books. My name is Hannah Byron, and I'm one of your hosts, historical fiction author. And today I'm joined by
Marianne Morea. So nice to be paired with you again, Hannah.
What do you write, my darling?
I have three pen names. I have Marianne Morea, Marianne Danbury, and M.A. Morea.
Okay, that's a lot of hats to keep on, and but basically all of them are have a paranormal aspect, even your young adults.
Yes, yeah, they do. But like you, I have an absolute love of history, and I always make sure to put some kind of historic facts or bring my readers back in time so that they can experience the history that I find so mesmerizing. Like all authors, we live in the world of what if. And for me, what if is, I wonder if I could, travel back in time. What would I do? What would I see? Even if it was just for a day, no one wants to stay in another time, but I always wonder what it would be like to actually physically be there to experience it.
Yeah.
So, but that's just my writer's mind.
Yeah. But I think it sort of, maybe writers have never really grown up, that as a child you have this great imagination about time capsules or in chivalry times or whatever. So I think it sort of translates still to our adult life that we have a vivid imagination. And yes, history, different places on the earth, everything is possible for us to keep us entertained. Yeah. And I think because what we wanted to talk to is how to continue writing when life throws some curveballs at you. And actually, I think in essence, you're already saying it. This longing to see other worlds, to go to other times, to imagine other situations. That longing is so strong that even when things happen that ordinary people also have to deal with, for us it's very hard to stay on track and to actually be able to continue writing. Do you agree?
I agree. It's a matter of well, like any other discipline, writing is a discipline. You know what I mean? It's a any other craft. And it's like anything else. You have to compartmentalize to be able to keep yourself on task. But for a creative personality, a creative mind, sometimes it's a little harder than somebody who's very analytical. The people who are very analytical, I think, can compartmentalize their brains more. I mean, it takes for a creative soul, I think you need to train yourself to be able to do that so that you don't get derailed, because I think we imagine and we feel things so vividly in our heads that sometimes we can get ourselves into a place where we spiral or we get into a loop where we just can't break ourselves out of it. On my website, I have a little quote there that says, giving birth to a book is the same thing, is similar to giving birth to a child, only it's just as painful, just a little less messy. And that we all have a dragon that lives in our gut, gnawing at our insides to give birth to the story. And I think that's true. And when life throws curveballs, where life gets in the way of the outer life that we all live, our jobs are, writing is our job, but some of us have day jobs as well, but our children, our spouses, our just life in general, that's the outer life, our characters and how we, and the worlds that we build in our head, whether they're in the contemporary world, whether they're in the past, whether they're a paranormal world, it's all our inner life. So sometimes that inner life and that outer life, they collide, you know,
Yeah.
and it's a matter of trying to keep all the balls in the air, all the planets aligned, and, you know, so that we can have that channel clear to be able to continue our writing. And, you know, some people don't believe in writer's block. I just went to a convention, and one of the speakers there says she doesn't believe in writer's block. She thinks that that's a lazy way of getting out of things. And
Yeah.
I don't believe that at all. I mean, there
Yeah.
are times when when our creative channels get
It,
clogged.
it has different phases, so to say, writer's block. It can be a draining of the energy. It can be that there are so many practical things that have to be done that you just don't get to sitting at your computer. It can be inside one book where you don't see how to get through it. So writer's block in essence is built up of many different things. But as I was listening to you, I was also thinking that the famous Virginia Woolf said, a writer lives two lives, the real life and the imagined life. And I mean, for most people, the real life is enough. So it's logical that as we are living two lives, I mean, even if we are standing in line in the grocery shop, or we are going for a walk, or even if we are talking to other people, there might be flashes of our stories,
yep,
you know, fermenting there. And so it is like living two. I actually really feel that.
Sure, because it's always percolating in the background, even if it's on the back, even if you're present in your outer life, the inner life is still percolating in the background. You know, it happens. I mean, it's why inspiration hits whenever it deigns to hit, you know. And there have been plenty of times when I've been in the middle of a conversation with my husband, and I'll put my finger up and I'll be like, wait. And I'll go grab a pad and a pen, and I'm like scribbling furiously. And he's like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm just like, one of the characters had a change. I have to get this or I'm going to lose it, because, you know, inspiration is like a leaf that just kind of falls from a tree in a stream. And if you don't scoop it up or take note of it, it'll float away and it'll be gone. And then you'll be like, damn, that was good, you know. And
would you therefore say that this, you use the word derailing, and I agree with you. I mean, there are days at end that you can be derailed from your writing due to. Do you think that the real life, as we all know it, and the physical life that we live, that is more forceful, that our creative life is more elusive, so to say, so that it's different? It is easier pushed aside, because I sometimes feel that.
I don't know if it's easier. I wouldn't say it's easily pushed aside, because for me, my characters are very intrusive into my outer life. They are. Okay. They, you know, I hear them in my head. I mean, I know I sound like a friggin' crazy person, but I do. I hear them in my head. And then it always worries me when things go quiet, when my characters, when I don't dream about them, when I don't dream about whatever current book I'm writing, or a book that I'm thinking about writing that may take, you know, may muscle its way forward and say, pay attention to me, look at me, you know, that type of thing. And so that's when it really worries me, when things go quiet.
Yeah. Would you think that is when writer's block is lurking for you?
I don't know if it's when writer's block is lurking. I think it's when my outer life and my inner life are really grappling for that top slot in my attention span. And you know, recently I've had so many different things that have happened. You know, we sold our house. We had to, you know, hunt around for a new one. You know, we found one, it fell through. We had to start from scratch again. I had 2 conventions that I had to go to. I had a laptop that crashed, you know. Now I have some medical issues that I have to deal with. So it's like, it's one thing right after another that it almost, you know, it almost feels like I need to, like, you know, stare at the look up at the sky, you know, and address the universe and be, you know, leave me alone here. Give me a break here. I got a deadline I need to make, you know. But it's, you know, and other people.
And do you then feel that your characters talk louder to you, or are they going more silent than when
I'm
you know?
stressed, when I am stressed to the max with being pulled in so many different directions, when I know that I have to put words on a page, and yet at the same time I have other things that I have to do, or I'm not in a comfort zone because I'm a what's the word, a displaced person because I'm between homes, I don't have my office, and so forth. They tend to go a little silent when I'm super stressed from my outer life, and I have to practice what being a little more analytical, like my writer friend that said she didn't believe in writer's block. I guess I need to be a little bit more like that, where I can compartmentalize and stop letting myself become overwhelmed. People who have regular jobs, people who are not writers, people who work in a 9 to 5 or whatever their shift is, or they have other stresses. People who are in healthcare right now,
Absolutely.
they're very, very stressed. And I don't know if
Yeah.
I would I mean, I have writer friends of mine who are nurses who are writing, and I don't know how the hell they're balancing
Yeah.
everything
Well,
that's happening with the pandemic and writing.
It very much depends on the kind of strength that you have, how you can compartmentalize. I always have difficulty pronouncing that word. I believe. So yeah, I tend to be very vulnerable to derailing in my life, and I do get very stressed. I still have a day job, so I'm quite a demanding day job. So and I've recently found one way around it that is so far working, and that is because I would get up in the morning and have this struggle between the day job and the writing. See if I could fit in some writing in between the day job. And that was so stressful because apart from the day job, of course, as you said at the beginning, we're also entrepreneurs. So we have the marketing to do, we have the social media to keep it in view. So I found that I was so stressed trying to fit in the words because I can't do that compartmentalizing very well, very good as well. I mean, I get overwhelmed. So what I do now is I push out the writing until after 8 o'clock in the evening. And I know I don't have demands from work anymore. The kids have been, I mean, usually it's calm in the evening. And I find it does take some of my night rest because I will be writing until 1:30 in the evening, but I don't have to think all day about wanting to write and not finding the rest. If I have the time, not finding the rest for that. And so far, I've been doing this for 2 weeks because, like you, I have a deadline. It works. And somehow I feel more at rest now because I know that but I'm different from you. My characters are not really, they don't really come to the forefront unless I sit at my computer and write. Of course, if I go for a walk, I will think about my story, but I don't have like you that they talk to me or that I dream about them. They really, really become very visual the moment I go into my document and start, writing. I do have flashes of seeing, oh, right, that's the reason when I'm not writing, but usually everything happens in the process of these hours that I write. Yeah. So I found that, and I'm going to continue doing that, not stressing myself, actually, because I always think, okay, I'll do it first time in the morning, and then something happens, and I just don't feel the rest for it to actually get in 500 words and then do something else,
I have found, though, for me, I think it's like anything else. What was that phrase from Mary Poppins? That what she said, that it's a snap. Once you begin, it'll be, you can get, it's easier to get it done once you begin. I don't remember the phrase that she used, but it was something that I try to keep with me. And the other thing that I try to keep with me is the fact that whereas these characters are speaking to us and we have this whole inner life that we live, I try to remember that my readers look forward to the stories that I give them, the stories that I write and that I make available for them, because that's their escape. That's their escape from their day job, from their stresses in their lives. So, I try to keep that in the forefront of my mind because it makes it all worthwhile. I know that when we were discussing what we were going to talk about here, we were talking, I had come up with thinking about, oh, well, maybe we could talk about how when we meet readers, how we feel, and are we as nervous as they are, and so forth. And I know you said you didn't really do much in terms of
I
book
can't.
signing
I mean,
and so forth.
I don't have. I'm in Holland, and I don't have a reader base here.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that's so much harder than it is for me. And then of course the pandemic on top of it, just adding fuel to the fire in terms of being able to, be keeping people, static and stuck, in their spot. But that is something that I always look back on now to help me kind of get through it. That when I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I don't know what to do with this story, but the other thing is, talking it out with like-minded other authors and so forth, trying to, if I'm stuck with something, bringing, saying, okay, if I bring it to you, or I bring it to the other three gals in our group, or another author friend of mine, or what have you, and say, I'm stuck. This is where my characters are going right now. What do what should I do? What do you think? These are my ideas. Do they suck? Or should I, do I need to, what do you see that I'm missing here?
Yeah, you can do that. I do that. I figured it out on my own. Well, I wouldn't. I mean, I will talk with my editor, of course, and I'm going for a developmental edit, but I will not. No, I don't do that.
I only do it with the authors that I trust. It's almost like you can remove your mask and you can let them see how vulnerable you are.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. But I think we're all different. As I already see the big difference between you having really very being very close skin-wise almost with your characters, and for me it's more I step into their world and I register that world and I write it down, but I wouldn't be able to talk about the process.
Let me ask you a question. When you step into their world, okay, obviously it's a world that you've created, but it's linked to things that are in history, okay, because you write a lot about World War I and so forth. The world that you've created, are you immersed in it? Are you a part of it, or are you an observer?
I'm an observer.
Okay, so you like stand almost like the ghost of Christmas Present, and you watch what's happening and then document it.
Yeah.
That's the difference right there between you and me.
Okay.
Is my characters, most of the time, especially my female characters, and even sometimes a little bit of my male characters, they're me. When I'm in their world, I'm them, and that's how it happens.
I'm never that.
Yeah, I'm always one of my characters, like with Jeepers Reapers, the book that I just put out in June that I'm working on the sequel to. My main character, Louisa Jericho, she's a lot of me. There's a lot of me in there. And so I resonate with her in that, so that when I'm writing and she's in the middle of doing something or experiencing something or whatever, it's me. I'm there. It's, I'm in her skin.
Yeah.
So, and I think
that's interesting, because I get a look back from reviewers that they say, I feel so much like I'm standing next to the main character and looking. I love how I am in the scene watching them. I'm standing beside them and seeing what happens. They love that aspect of it. But that's interesting that you say that. So that is the difference with you. Probably your readers will feel like you, that they are actually in the movement. But probably that could also be because I write about a real part of history, about the Second World War in this instance. It probably, we have all watched films, movies from that period of watching it, but you're not the main character. You're not the person who is shooting down the Nazis, so to say. You're watching that. And that is what my reviewers say. I love it how I'm so taken in the scene and watching and seeing everything that happens, because that is what happens when I'm writing. And that's why I need absolute silence and absolute no distractions, because I have, like a reporter, I have to register everything that I see. But
but you're just not reporting though, because it's visceral. I have read your work, and even though you're observing, you're feeling it too. You're there.
No, I'm very able to give my characters the feelings because of my empathy. I know what they can feel, but I'm still the observer. I'm still seeing how they are feeling and how they are reacting to that.
That's interesting.
It's interesting. I really like this.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I had dinner with two readers. They're friends of mine, but they're readers, and they have been my readers since the very beginning, since I started thinking about publishing back in 2009, 2010. I was talking about one of them hadn't read Jeepers Reapers yet, and the other one, she says, she had gone to the ladies' room, and I was telling her name is Karen about the storyline. So when my other friend Ginger came back and she sat down, she goes, "Oh, you're talking about Jeepers Reapers?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "I read it," and I said, "You did?" She, because they're close friends now. And I said, "I didn't know you read it." And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, I loved it. She goes, "You know what's funny is that with every single book of yours that I've read," she says, at first it was a little disconcerting to me, because as I'm reading the female characters, I hear your voice. I know it's you, especially since the characters all have shades of your personality. I could see you saying some of the things that they say. I mean, I can picture you, I hear your voice. And I think that's probably proof in the pudding right there, that my characters are me, you know?
Yeah, that's what we can get back from our reviewers. And I've never actually really had this conversation with another author about these totally different approaches to writing, and it will even help me to understand my own writing better as well.
So
because that's the only thing I want to become very, very good at actually writing down precisely what is happening, what I'm seeing.
So when your main character is on the front line, all right, she's the doctor that's on the front line and so forth. When you put yourself there, you're sitting at your computer and you've opened up your document, and now you're in the scene where she's on the front line. How does it play out in your head? Is it like a movie reel that plays out in your head that you're watching, or are you actually standing watching her, dealing with these horrific things that are happening around her, and how she handles the stress and the fact that she's a female doctor, and that she's in the field hospital? And how are you like standing next to the while she's treating a wounded soldier, so to speak? Are you there, like watching over her shoulder, or is it like a movie reel that's playing and you're just sitting there in the movie theater taking notes? I'm so fascinated by how this works for you.
Yeah, it's a bit of everything. but it is also, there is always a kind of veil over the whole scene. So it's not all visual. It's also it's not um, it is also something that just comes through me and that I register. So it's not that I'm really seeing every detail. Sometimes I see it very clearly, but like the feelings of the people, that is just something that I know is there, but I don't see it. I just know it's there. So I write it down. But it's so you can't, it's not all palpable, so to
I see.
say.
Okay.
It was a very metaphysical discussion.
See, for me, it's a very visceral thing. It's very visceral. Um, when my characters have to, when I have to kill off a character, you know, the character that is either taking the life or finds the character that has passed, you know, that I've had to kill off, or it's a situation where it's a they die or I die type of a situation where it's like it's a fight or flight, or you know, self-defense or something like that, where you know they have to defend themselves and the other character ends up dead. Because I have a lot of action in a lot of my books, I feel every single emotion that my characters go through. I feel the adrenaline, I feel the rush of fear, the rush of panic, the rush of hyper focus, where your eyes kind of narrow, your vision narrows, and you know that you have to hyper focus or you're going to pass out, or you're not going, you're going to lose your fine motor coordination. Because I have had some of those own experiences. Not that I've ever killed somebody. That's not what I mean. But, you know, not a murderer. Sorry. but
only on paper. Only on paper.
Only on paper.
Multiple times.
Yeah, only on paper, multiple times. But I do have a first and second degree black belt. You know, so I have been in combat, and it's and the what I have been involved in with my training and with these tournaments and so forth that I've been in hasn't been like the Karate Kid, where it's been like point winner, you know, you just have to strike somebody. No, it's been full contact where you draw blood, or the other opponent has to tap out, you know. So I have been where it's been very, very stressful on me emotionally, so that I do feel a little bit of what that's like, you know, a little bit.
Yeah.
So I,
Yeah.
so it's a little so you know, it's very visceral for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if there are, because I think your method is much more common
exhausting.
amount. Yeah. Oh no, my writing is really exhausting. So, but much more common, because that is why people are very much drawn into action and you know, fast-paced reading, because I assume that those writers, now I don't know, but those writers are like you, are in the scene, and they are actually, because they are experiencing it themselves, it also draws in the readers in that process. Um, so I don't know that whether my my system of being the fly on the wall and just registering everything that I see, and that I don't know if that, I mean, I do know that in general people like the book, so it's not like, but I think it's also a question of being very different personalities. I'm I think I'm a very withdrawn person. So
I don't know if I would use the word withdrawn to describe you, Hannah. I think you're a very cerebral person. You're
yeah, right. That's a
intellectual.
better, yeah, that's
You're
a
very
better
cerebral and intellectual, but you're also um you feel things very deeply.
yeah,
But I think
absolutely.
it's something that you internalize. Whereas I wear all my emotions right on my face, right on my sleeve, and I'm very quick to react. I'm very quick to either flare up angry or flare up with oh my God, let me squeeze the life out of you with a hug, that type of a thing. And so that's the
So
our difference in personalities. Yeah.
And where does intuition, because I feel that I'm also a very intuitive writer. How is that for you? So I sort of feel
what do you
myself,
mean?
I feel myself into a situation as well. So so I watch, and then I try to gauge what's going on and to write that down. So it's also a lot of exploring. It's like every time I step into a new scene, I step into another world, and I have to look around me and see what's going on. So and feel my way through it.
I think I probably could benefit from a little bit of that, because every time I step into a scene, it's like boom, everything's happening at once. And maybe if I stepped back a little bit and I was a little bit more of an observer, the storyline, the plot line would take a little longer to develop, and maybe be I wouldn't have so many moments of, okay, what do I do now? That this is I think it's also has a difference.
Sort of burns out something.
Well, pantser and plotter. It's a little bit of like that like a plotter actually takes a little bit more time to think about what's going to happen in the scene, whereas a pantser will just let it flow, and then when the gush comes, the gush comes, and then when it's a trickle, it's a trickle. And then when it's a trickle, you sit there and you're like, drumming your fingers on the table going, okay, let me think about this, what's going to happen here. And, it's almost like you have to play with like a flow chart where you have to kind of connect the dots that you want to make things happen. So,
but are you a total pantser then?
Lately, yes. Lately, I have most of the books that I had where I notebooks, rather, not books, but notebooks, where I have my brainstorming sessions, and I write things down and what I think is going to happen, and I start the flow chart of how things are going to connect, and where my characters are coming from and whatnot. They're kind of packed in boxes, and I have a couple of bags in the back room over here where I have my notebooks and whatnot, but it's been a little bit cumbersome trying to dig them out to go through. So lately I have been more of a pantser than a plotter, and it's been a little bit of a detriment. So, but the good thing is that in this book, I think I'm going to add a little bit more history into it, because Jeepers Reapers really it had a background of where Reapers came from and how Reapers and Keepers came about, in terms of guarding souls and trying to snatch souls. But this one, I think I'm going to add a little bit more history, because Keepers, the way I've built my universe with them is that Keepers, once you're selected to be a keeper, that you stop aging, so you can be, a century old. So I think I'm going to add a little more history. And so I'm actually really excited about it, because, for me, if I could capture time in a bottle, and I know that that's an old song, but if I could, and then just kind of peek at it and spend a little bit more, spend a little time in these little snippets of where it is in history, I would just absolutely love that. Oh my God, I would love that.
And what's a specific time in history are you thinking, or not? No specific time?
No, it's just whatever's taking my fancy. Let me ask you, what is the strangest thing that you've ever done that speaks to history? Strangest thing that you've ever explored, or that you've ever visited, or that was well, let me tell you where I'm coming from. When I was younger, in my late teens and early 20s and so forth, I loved, especially my teenagers, I loved cemeteries. The older, the better. The more decrepit the tombstones, the more worn the tombstones, or the more ornate the tombstones, just fascinated me about the lives of the people that were slumbering in the residence of the cemeteries. And that's where I started with my what ifs. So that is probably one of the strangest things that I've ever done, is walk cemeteries. What about you? Has there ever been anything like that,
Oh,
considering you're the historic fiction writer?
yeah, yeah, but I've only been a historical fiction author for 1 year, and before that, I've always had a fancy for history. I've always loved it, and always had it as a subject in my curriculum. But I think it's only been recently that I really indulge in it, and I, I I can't. I don't really. I'm trying to wrap my brain. I think I'm also very uninteresting person in that respect. I don't do strange things or.
But you've been to so many places. I mean, I know that when we discuss, you're like, I don't travel, but you live in Europe, and you go for the weekend, you go to Belgium.
Yeah.
You go to Belgium for the day,
Yeah.
from Holland, and you've been to Paris, and you've been to Ireland, and you're from
okay.
England.
I can give you a strange but that's a terrible long time ago, and I was with a boyfriend. We were hitchhiking through Spain, and we had been camping a lot and also sleeping with friends, but we decided that we wanted to sleep one night in a hotel, just because we had some money, so it was possible. So we come to this really nice hotel, but there was nobody. The door was open, but there was nobody at the counter. And we waited and we waited, and eventually we fell asleep in the lobby, and we slept there. And yeah, we had breakfast the next morning, all free, and we just left. We didn't spend a dime, so we were fully planned to spend the night, pay some money. We just went, and nobody came. I don't know, the door was open, and there were people in the hotel. But so we just sneaked into it was paid for the breakfast and the night. So we sneaked into the breakfast room and breakfast. So that was really strange, I thought. That you want to spend money. I mean, we were old hippies. We wanted to spend money and we couldn't.
You could have gone into one of the rooms.
Well, we didn't have that. We were waiting for, we were polite hippies. So we were waiting for the
polite hippies. I love it.
And nobody came. So there were these nice plush sofas. I mean, we didn't have a bad night. I mean, each the sofa there, it was really good sleep.
Okay. So that makes me sound like the creepy weird one that I walk around cemeteries as a teenager looking, wondering about the inhabitants. But yeah, I mean, when I graduated from college, I did a 3-month tour of Europe, Spain, France, and England. And my friends and we rented a car in Madrid, and we drove the whole trek was like down and then up, and then we took the ferry from Paris, from Calais rather, into England, and then we took buses when we got to the UK. But
that was the thing at the time.
Yeah,
there were long distance buses. I don't know if they still have it in the UK, but they were very good quality, very cheap, but you could more easily than with trains. You did long distance.
Well, things are different now because everything is digital with the passes on your phone, and I guess it's the Europass. You can go from country to country without it. But back in the 80s when I did this, you still had to show your passport when you.
We have a big area now with a lot of countries. It's called the Schengen area. So if I go to France or to Belgium or to Germany, we don't have to show our passports.
Yeah.
That's all. That's one area. There are outer borders around these countries where there are, patrols, but inside those countries that have that agreement, you can just travel freely.
Right, they're within the EU, right?
No, it's not. It's called Schengen, so it's not all the countries of the EU. There are some who don't participate, but basically the countries around Holland participate, and but even Hungary, I think, and
See, now that was me. If I was living with you or I was coming to visit you, I would take such advantage of that. And I would just go everywhere that I could possibly go. And I would stand in the middle of Budapest and I would just look at the architecture and just be there. And my imaginings would just go wild because of all the way that I love everything vampire and just I would eat it up. I would
yeah,
absolutely eat it up. So yeah,
yeah,
history.
yeah,
Go ahead.
that's again a different. I would be a very different traveler because I would just, especially now, I'm writing a book on Norway and I'm so involved in the history there. I'm reading so much about it. I'm constantly looking at the map because I have to know the distance between places. I have to know the Shetland bus, you know, that was the small fisher boats that went to the Shetland Islands. That's how the resistance came about, you know, and the agents. So she's taking part in that. She actually has to cross the North Sea tonight in my writing. But then I do get a strong longing to visit. I've never been to Norway and it must be beautiful. And then I do get, but it's always around my research. So I wouldn't just want to travel to a place anymore because I want to see whatever. I really, really would like to visit the places where I'm doing research about.
Absolutely.
So I
I
can
see
get
that.
them.
I could see that immediately. I could see that right away. That would be something because even with me, when I'm writing a book that has a lot of uh, taking place in like when I wrote Condemned, there's a part of that takes place in Rome, and then it takes place in, then it goes to the Holy Land where it takes place in Jerusalem, and it takes place in Acre, which is an ancient port city, and there's a lot of Templar Knight ruins there, and a lot of them are submerged. So there's a lot of underwater archaeology that goes on, and the research that I had to do with that was just amazing. And I've never been to the Holy Land, and I have relatives who went there on birthright, and I sat down with them for 2 nights and picked their brains about everything, looked at every picture that they had from the Jordan Desert and just the walled city of Jerusalem, and the Muslim quarter and the Jewish quarter and the Christian quarter and the Church of the Sepulchre. And I pictured my vampire Dominic sitting perched at the top of the sepulchre, just kind of watching the sunset, because he's so old he can actually tolerate the sun, and just sitting there on the top of the sepulchre just watching everything, before he actually senses his love interest who happens to be in the city at the same time. And it's just things like that just give me goosebumps, and it just so when you're researching and I'm researching, I get that same urge to want to be.
But so before I became a historical fiction author, I would travel for fun, and now I only see myself traveling really to places that I already haven't. It needs to have some use, the use of, and so I do hope. I mean, I retire in 500 days now, 499 days.
Yay.
And then I really, really hope to travel to the places, because I think that would give added value to my books as well. Because when you were talking about the cemetery in The Parisian Spy, the book that came out on the 20th of July, there is a part that two secret agents meet in Père Lachaise, the famous cemetery in Paris, where Jim Morrison is and so many great people are buried there. So I had to research the whole cemetery, but from maps. And then I was like, I really, really want to go there, and visit it. So I do have that, but it's very strongly when I'm actually researching something. I really want to see that in real life,
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Anyway, live to research another day. And I don't know about you, but when I'm researching, there's always little tangents that happen, like, oh, this could be a great plot bunny for a sequel, or this could be a prequel, or and plot bunnies happen all the time for me. It doesn't have to be, it could be anywhere. I could be anywhere and a plot bunny will turn up. I could be having a conversation with somebody. I could be watching the news or a show or something, and a plot bunny will come up. So
yeah, so
I always,
that's a big difference as well. I don't have that. I'm so focused on the one book I'm writing.
It's a little distracting. It can be a little distracting, so it's like, I scribble it down, and I have a notebook that, for, book ideas, and sometimes I look back at it and I'm like, what is this? What is this? And then I was like, oh yeah, no, that's a terrible idea. Cross that out. But it's funny, we were talking about how in the Clubhouse morning coffee chat, about how if you've come across things on your computer that you wrote a while back that you either look at and say, oh, this is a gift from the heavens, like I didn't even realize I did this and I can pick this up and run with it, or you look at it and say, oh my God, my writing is so different now. And I think it's a combination of the two. I wrote the Sentinel Brotherhood based on something that I wrote 10 years ago, and I picked it up again, and I was just like, oh, this is good. It needs revision, it needs to be reworked, but I can make a series out of this. And I did. So there's it's a trilogy now.
I have to brace myself, because I've decided, or basically decided, that I want to bring out my 10-year anniversary book next year, but I have to reread it. I haven't reread it in 10 years. And I'm very afraid to see what I will find. And
we're just about at the end. We've been talking for about 40 minutes, so it's a little bit of time for us to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed our talk. I think we went in some different directions. We started off talking about the difficulties of getting life out of the way to be able to write. But I think we became so enthusiastic about our writing that it definitely spurs us on to show that we will continue to stay at the job and meet our deadlines. Marianne Morea, M.A. Morea, and Marianne Danby.
I sound like a person with split personalities.
No. It's a very wise thing, because you write in different genres too, so people can find you under these 3 books. My name is Hannah Byron. You can find my books under that name, and of course, find out us on our website, www.boundbybooks.podcast.com.
And each one of us that speaks on these podcasts has our own little link that you can find out more about us in detail, and reach out. We always love to talk and chat with readers. And if you have any questions about our inner life or our outer life, or how we balance it, or how we try to stop it from driving us crazy, if you have any suggestions, reach out. From us to you, with big hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.
Wait! Before you go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out on our website, boundbybookspodcast.com.